for him to do something like this is, it's very shocking, mind-blowing for all of us. We're all here, we're in shock, never expecting for someone that we knew like him, especially because he's religious, he's devoted to religion, and he would especially take out his time from wherever he may have been and work just to come pray in the mosque. And for him to go and start killing innocent people like this is, it's very shocking, and of course it's shameful.
Welcome to The Hard Line. I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, filling in for Ed Berliner. There are new developments in the California attacks, and they confirm what many of us knew and feared would be proven, and that is there is a clear connection between the shooters and ISIS. Investigators are saying Tashfeen Malik posted a pledge of allegiance to ISIS on Facebook just prior to the mass killings taking place. Malik is the wife of Syed Farouk. She was here on a K-1 visa. She was from Pakistan, and she was a Muslim extremist. So the question is, how many more Maliks and Farouks do we have in America? Joining me now, Rutherford Institute President and constitutional attorney and author of the book Battlefield America, John Whitehead. John, thanks for being with me today, and I just want to lead in by saying this. On the morning of 9/11, I was there. I actually had my head up and I watched my fellow Americans jump 80 stories to their death. And immediately after that, I remember the country coming together and everybody was adamant about making sure that we knew who was coming into this country, where they were from, what their intent was, and it's sort of as if we've gotten lazy. Do we need to get back to that sort of mentality?
Well, we're going to have to come together because looking at the statistics, I'm surprised no one's talking about this, but under the former 4 presidents, the attacks, the mass shootings under Barack Obama have zoomed. Just to give you an example. Under Ronald Reagan, there were 11 mass shootings in America. That's 4 more people getting killed, according to the FBI. Under George W. Bush, 23. Listen to this. In the 7 years Barack Obama's been president, 162. It just shoots up the chart. So something's going on. I think that either we're dealing with a very bumbling administration, our intelligence obviously isn't working. In fact, I've talked to former NSA agents who say by their surveillance tactics they're using now, by watching everybody, and they do watch everybody, by the way, they're using the FBI to do their domestic snooping on us, they have trouble following up on leads. You had a woman here, by the way, who was given a green card after she was vetted by the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. You have the TSA, they're doing studies with the TSA where they were sneaking agents through, 96% of the time weapons and bombs, and didn't catch them. So we're dealing with a large government entity, in my opinion, that's, number one, totally bumbling, and with that shocking rise in mass shootings, there's something going on, folks, and we're going to have to really come together as communities. And I think one thing I'm seeing is we're going to have to keep our eyes peeled. We're going to get back to community control. We're going to have to get back to watching what goes on in our communities, making sure our communities come together, because we're a splintered nation and all these mass shootings going on, and they're going to continue. What's going to happen, in my opinion, is that why these people were prepared, obviously. They got out of an SUV, cocked their rifles, tactical vests. They were ready to go. They were trained. Smart terrorists are going to get through. But again, we're dealing, I think, with a bumbling government, a horribly bumbling government.
Well, I want to sort of get back to where I was with the original question. I mean, I know a lot about immigration. I know a lot about the processes of which we take people in. I also know that we take in more people in this country than all other countries put together. So when you take a look at that number of people, and then you take the the emerging Islamic extremist community, it's just getting bigger by the day. It's metastasizing. So the question becomes, how can our country, how can the FBI, how can immigration officials really do thorough background checks with that many people coming in? And the fact of the matter is, we just can't. So now we need more surveillance. It means we got to put more surveillance on people, and that means that Americans, if they really want to be safe, are going to have to sacrifice some civil liberties. Is that a true statement or no?
I would say don't sacrifice civil liberties. Do a better on who we elect in the country. I mean, letting droves of people in this country right now is obviously not a wise thing. But let me go back again. Malik was vetted by the department, the female shooter was vetted by the Department of Homeland Security and FBI and given a green card. And like I say, the security agents I'm talking to saying our surveillance doesn't work. But I would agree with you on that. Letting large groups of people in this country right now is a really bad mistake. I think it could create some really bad problems. And it's
John, I thank you for your insight. I'm now going to move. I have to move on to my next guest. And what I want to do is I want to dig in to the psychological aspect of the attack. I want to welcome psychotherapist and author of Bad Therapy, Good Therapy, and How to Tell the Difference, Dr. Michael J. Hurd. Doctor, thank you for being with me here today.
Thank you, Dennis, for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, when you take a look at, let's say, for instance, the Colorado shooter who went in and shot up the movie when everybody was there watching Batman, you see that guy on television, you take a look at him, and, you know, most people, the average day guy is going to say, oh my God, what a nut, you know? When you take this sort of event that happened in California and you tie in things like the Quran and ISIS, and you look at the level of preparation that was taken, is this something, I mean, is something firing wrong in these people's brain, or is this strictly the Quran doing the nasty, if you will, on these people?
Well, it is the Quran, it is the ideology of Islam, but deeper than that, it is basically, it's like a perfect storm of faith and force. Basically, if you take faith to its logical extreme, faith is the opposite of reason, and everything that you believe trumps any kind of rational, objective perspective that you would have about anything. And a person who is attracted to this kind of ideology, Islam happens to be the big one in the world today, someone attracted to that is poised for that from the get-go. They must have a real profound lack of regard for their own minds and just objectivity and reason in general. You know, most of us channel our interests into science or business or using our minds in some kind of productive, rational way. Some of us are faithful and some of us aren't, but most of us have that aspect to us. And if you get a person who is really all about faith, but then on top of it has a fascination, maybe even kind of a perverse romanticism with the idea of force, that you can force people into your point of view, then you have a perfect storm. And that's the kind of thing that I think goes on. I don't know about the particulars of these individuals, but I would bet anything that's Doctor, let me stop you for a second, because I think somebody watching this right now, I mean, look, everybody's on the edge of their seat right now. And so people want to know what the warning signs are. So if you look at a guy like the Colorado shooting, right, and he just had a bunch of guns, and he goes in, he just starts shooting up a random, he just starts shooting randomly at people, and it had nothing to do with religion. And now you take a look at what just happened here in California, and they just go in, they start shooting people up, but before they do so, they send off a message to ISIS on Facebook. I mean, how does somebody who's at home right now differentiate the difference between somebody who has just lost their mind mentally and somebody who is doing something because that's what they believe that Allah wants? Well, in both cases, you're talking about a kind of person. They're not the typical kind of person that a therapist or a psychiatrist is going to encounter in their offices, because these are people, the vast majority of people that go to seek psychiatric or psychological help, they believe, sense, or know that something is off somewhere, and they want to get some kind of perspective, some kind of help, medication, therapy, whatever. But people like this, in both cases, whether it's Islam or whether it's something else or not anything in particular, it could be some other kind of religion too, whatever it is, they're convinced that they're right. You know, their feelings have told them that they are right based on Allah or whatever it is. And that's really the end of it. They also tend to be good.
But doctor, we have heard so many different times, even with the shooting that took place in Connecticut, we hear that people warned of somebody having mental issues. They go, they take a gun, and they go out and they make these mass killings. But we don't get the same warnings per se when somebody's going to turn around and do what they did here in California. Is there anything? I mean, is it prescription drugs? I mean, what do we do? Let me say it differently. What do we do when we believe we have somebody who could cause harm? I mean, do you call the police? Do you talk? What do you do?
Well, I mean, the main thing is really to not think you're imagining it, but to talk about it. And with the events in California, one of the things I've been reading is that people they noticed some of these Facebook posts, or they noticed people talking about things in a certain way that was very adversarial or angry or intolerant. And it's not that you call the police for what people believe,
what we have to do is be willing to basically judge people. We live in an age of non-judgmentalism. We're not supposed to judge people. We're not supposed to be seen as judging people. And I agree we shouldn't leap to conclusions or have prejudicial, racist, or those kind of judgments. But we have to, if something doesn't make sense, we have to acknowledge it to ourselves and be willing to say it to other people. Now, that's not always gonna be
I agree with you 100%. Doctor, I'm going to have to cut you off at that.
Okay.
Coming up next on the Hardline, Ed Berliner interviews a group called CFACT. They're headed to Paris to premiere their new documentary, Climate Hustle.